So Susan, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today, and also, of course, to the students at the University of Waterloo. Can you begin, please, by telling me about the job that you do at PwC?
Sure. So I'm Sue Sharp. I am a Senior Director at PwC. I'm part of the digital practice, and I run the Experience Center here. So that means two things. The digital practice means I've been helping build out our practice within the walls of PwC. I like to say it's not your grandfather's PwC. We're not a bunch of accountants in digital. We are creative people. We're people from agencies. We're people with technology backgrounds. We're a different breed of consultant. And we reside in what we're calling an experience center. You're in it right now. It's about 8,000 square feet of space where we work with our clients to reimagine their future from a digital perspective. We do a lot of work with design thinking, and innovation, disruption, and we do that right here with them. And we've got other centers in Ottawa. We're building another one out west, and we have 35 around the world that we're connected to through all of our devices. So it's pretty amazing. So my role is both selling to clients, delivering with clients, but then also running the operations of the center and the team, and building a culture where creative people can actually foster and flourish within a typically old curmudgeon-y consulting firm.
Sounds like a great place to work. How would you define digital transformation? What do you mean when you talk about that?
So when I think about digital transformation, I think about these organizations that know they need to do something with technology, but they haven't figured it out. And they are thinking about, I see these CEOs or these senior executives go, we need to be digital, or we need to transform our business, or we need to be innovative. But they don't know what that means. And so when we think about digital transformation, we think about new product development, new service development, new employee experience. It's all around the experience of their people that will drive business value and enable them to either change their business model or enhance an existing business model, but service their clients and meet their needs in a way that will be truly impactful. And we always think digital first. So can we enable a service digitally that we haven't been in the past? Can we create a new business model completely that is 100% digital? And those are the things that we think about when we're talking about digital transformation.
Why are organizations so interested in digital transformation today? How are they being disrupted?
Well, they're being disrupted by new business models constantly, and they're frightened. And when I look around us, we've got every single one of the banks, staring at me through the window. And these companies are worried because they've got a lot of legacy, not just legacy technology, but legacy culture and legacy attitudes that are kind of holding them back. And they know they need to do something, but they're not sure where to start. And sometimes they've tried things in a silo, and they haven't gotten past that silo. And so we see, companies really trying to get through this maturity curve. And you think about a siloed approach to a more of a center of excellence approach, more to a completely inherent in the culture that you've created and enabled through digital kind of capability or capacity. And I find that the organizations that are still trying to dabble in digital or innovation is their culture is not ready. They don't have the digital acumen to really make that first step, to really get behind it completely.
Makes sense. So what are the technologies that are especially being featured in organizations' transformation activities today?
So I love that question, because to me, it's not about the technology. It's about what are we trying to solve for, or what are we trying to achieve? So how do we need to evolve our business? Where are we trying to get to? So what is, what if, what wows, and then what's feasible. And it's the technology is an enabler. So you could have a ton of different technology and try and jimmy it into something, but you might not be actually solving the problem you need to solve with that technology. You know, I have one client, somebody came to us and said, we've bought some AI, we've bought an AI solution and we need to figure out what to do with it. Well, that's the wrong way to look at it. Let's look at where do we want to go, what do our clients want, our employees want, and what is our new business model, whatever it is that we're solving for, and what's our vision. What technology do we need now to enable it? What do we see happening? Sure, we see a ton of AI. We see blockchain. We see machine learning. We see all of those things. We still see so much CRM, so much, because organizations didn't really transform their sales, marketing, and service in a way that they get a 360-degree view of their client. So that front office kind of transformation is still well alive in many organizations. But we're seeing also identity management, a ton of that. Cyber, the trust level is huge, and so all the kind of the technologies from a cyber perspective. There's a ton, but again, it's not technology for technology's sake. 70% of technology implementations fail because we did technology for technology's sake. So we really need to have a purpose first before we figure out the enabling tech.
So on the purpose, how is digital transformation impacting business models for individual businesses, but also for ecosystems that businesses are operating in?
So when I think about that, I think the ecosystem, like when I look at financial services as an industry, they know they need to keep up with one another. So that's an interesting ecosystem model. The technology is changing so rapidly, and they all are kind of evolving around it. Plus, there are so many shared services that these firms are linking into. They know they need to keep up. So that's an interesting kind of, I don't know what to call that, ecosystem in and of itself. We also see a lot of risk and compliance impacting the way that organizations have to deal with technology. For example, a horrible IFRS 17. I couldn't even describe to you what it does for the insurance firms. However, I know that the insurance firms that haven't kept their technology up to date are way further behind those that have, in order to adhere to this new policy or new legislation, this regulation. And it will be very, very expensive for these other firms to actually get into what they need to adhere to this regulation. So regulatory issues have to make you keep up to speed. Peer pressure keeps you up to speed and evolve. But then you see things like organizations that are doing like two-sided marketplaces and kind of evolving their business models to enable something new. And we see that in some government work. We're seeing that in commercial work. It's really interesting. We're seeing a lot also of organizations pushing the limits in terms of how can they innovate, use digital to help them innovate the way that they're offering and delivering services to their customers. And I think a good example is out west. Even just BC Pensions, we're working with them right now on how to deliver the pension to citizens of British Columbia. Mm-hmm. And it was all done paper and phone, and now it's all digital. And it's a really interesting kind of transformation that they've been going through. And it's, multi-year, obviously, but it's really powerful.
Fascinating. So what do you see as the impact that digital transformation of organizations might have on society more broadly?
More broadly. So I think a couple things to think about there. From an organization perspective, understanding how to drive true value-based work for their employees, make it interesting and energizing for their employees, I think is really important, because as we start to see kind of that rote work or that rules-based work, we're seeing more and more robotics process automation in the market, right? And so there are, I mean, even within my world here, we're an audit company, we have that function of audit could go the way of the dodo, right, with RPA. And so how do I then look at these very, very smart and skilled people, our audit teams, smart, educated, highly educated people, how do I, we can't just think about that business transformation, you have to think of your cultural transformation. And we think about it in what we actually call digital fitness. So think about it, digital acumen or digital agility. So thinking about skill set or mindset or relationships and behaviors across those 4 pillars, how do the organizations need to evolve their people from a talent perspective to enable transformation to happen? Because 63% of digital transformations fail because of people. That's in the people and the skill set. Yeah, so it's interesting to think about. Now, back to your question. Government, we think about how can government draw in more investors, more, we don't have a big group of VCs here in Canada compared to what you do stateside. We don't have, well, we have lots of startups. You know, we see the city of Toronto going over to Israel and still trying to bring in more startups, right? How do we attract more talent to our market? But is there like a chicken and the egg on, do we need more VCs here to attract more talent so that we have more startups? I don't know. So there's a role to play there. We also see the role of government thinking about policy. You know, what kind of policy change is needed in order to allow organizations to be more innovative and more digital? We, in our tax group, we had a discussion about a notion of cash pooling. Have you heard of cash pooling?
I think so.
So it's where multinational organizations have to look at, if instead of going and getting a loan for a capital expense, they would look at all of their different bank accounts around the globe to see what cash they have, pool the cash, and then buy it. And so you buy whatever it was instead of getting a loan.
Sure.
In Canada, our policy around that is it's not favorable for entities in Canada to do this. And it's not because the government of Canada wrote the policy to prohibit it, that's just the way our policies are. If the government allows, rewrites some of their policies, our Canadian companies would be more apt to, or more able to make capital investments in startups or in businesses to help us, do bigger, better things. So that's just one example of many that we're looking at.
That makes sense. And another area might be education. So are there things education should be doing to more effectively enable transformation?
Well, I think when I go back to that skill set, mindset, relationship, and behavior, and so kind of how do we help our people that are in school today, whether it's the kids in grade schools, post-secondary, wherever you are, how do we help them how do we create these mindsets of curiosity and enable them to fail? I know, I have a son just graduating university. The fear of God struck in him all the time about failing an exam. So it's hard for them to then transfer to the workplace and then feel like it's okay to fail. And do we enable our senior leaders to accept people failing? Our goal, though, as part of transforming, if we can't if we don't have a culture that enables us to test things and learn from it and try again to get it right, we will have a hard time allowing, or actually transforming our businesses. So how do we instill that in a school level and enable it in a school level and have it kind of trickle through into work? And so I think it kind of comes from both top down. We need to do this change at the top, but from the bottom up, it needs to start percolating. People need to be willing and open to trying new things.
Okay, and where should organizations start with digital transformation? What should their first steps be?
Yeah, so I always like to start, and I always think about it from more of a design thinking perspective. So where are we today? So kind of go through a discovery of what is today. What are the needs of our clients, our employees, our partners or vendors that we're working with? What is it? What should it be? What if we could do something? So we go through that divergent and convergent thinking. But what should it be? What if we could do this? What would wow people? And then what's feasible? So you tie the business, the experience of people, and the technology together to try and get to to make your plan to get to where you're trying to go from a transformation perspective. So for me, it's really starting now centering on the needs of the people through part of it.
And that makes sense. So are some organizations more likely to be successful with digital transformation than others? And why?
I think some are way more apt to be successful, and I think it's because of the culture. And that culture comes from the top down. And if your senior leaders in an organization embrace the technology or the experience design or the trying new things and learning from them, and that entire mindset of experimenting, those are the companies that you see really transforming in this industry.
Being prepared to try new things.
Absolutely. Because, it's easy to digitize something, but it's not easy to figure out, are we digitizing the right thing? And it's not easy to let go of what your own hypothesis is, your personal bias. And by understanding what really matters most to the people you're designing for is very impactful, and it will deliver business results at the end of the day.
Makes sense. So how should digital transformation be approached with employees? What will its impact be? And how should that be managed with them?
That's a great question. So I think we think of it in a couple different ways. So one way, if we're transforming a service offering or a new business model for an organization, we always think about, okay, if this is where we're going with this new experience, what is the employee experience need to be in order to support this business model, but still be powerful and enjoyable, delightful for the employee at the same time. Because we could say we're going to do, launch a fighter jet or a rocket ship, but if it's a crappy experience for the employee, it's not going to get supported. So we got to think about it from both lenses all the time. We also think about, and we did this with the government of Canada just recently, thinking about they had a blueprint 2020 about reimagining the government workplace. So imagine a work environment with no Wi-Fi, barely any windows, a lot of paper, and the inability to go from building to building even though you're a government employee. And so we worked with them to redefine what that actually meant and what it meant to the people who work for the government. And how would they then, get to this new vision? And it's a really important thing to think about how you then drive the change or help the change for the employees. And it comes down to the core behaviors of the people you're designing for, right? And the people you're building or interacting with, and using kind of behavioral change as the way to help you in your transformation.
Just a couple of more questions. First, what do you see as the main challenges that organizations face? What are the things they should be thinking about that they need to focus on most to be successful with digital transformation?
I think, again, they need to think about the experimentation and being curious and trying new things. They need to focus on centering on the needs of the people they're interacting with. But I also think that they need to figure out how to embrace a more digital savvy culture. And how do you think about your talent inside your organization to support where you're trying to go? Because it's critical to get you where you need to be.
Thank you. And my final question, the people who are going to be watching this, many of them will be entering the workplace soon, or they'll be recently have entered it. How can they better contribute to the work that their organizations will be doing to transform?
Sure. So, I think many places have innovation summits, they have hackathons, they have, we have a grassroots program here. Every organization is looking for people to contribute. No one knows where the next great idea is going to come from. And, it could come from our caterer. I don't know. And who cares where it comes from? But get involved. Get involved. There are always people looking for people to contribute to new ideas, new business programs, even if it's as easy as testing an idea. Can you get involved through the testing of a concept in an experiment? We're always looking at how do we find lots of different lenses to solve a problem. And so if you can come to teams with an open mind to help them from a different lens look at a problem, it's really powerful. So put your hand up. Yeah.
Bring their new ideas.
Absolutely. Because we always think diverse thought is where you're going to get your biggest bang. And so if the more diversity in the thought of the brains in the room, it's a great thing.
Thanks for talking to me today, Sue. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of me and the students who will watch it, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Is that okay?